Okay, so again, this isn't a no, or this isn't a real no before you go. This isn't a you're not going to come out of here with a merit badge. You're not going to come out of here with any sort of certifications. This is really just talking about the sort of problems that you have on the Rio Grande National Forest. And some of it's going to spill over onto the other side of the hill, onto the San Juan, just because my forecast area straddles the divide, and we don't really separate the difference between the San Juan and the Rio Grande. Although that big line, the Continental Divide, makes a pretty significant difference in the snow and avalanche problems that we see. So the Know Before You Go program, though, and if time is going to allow it, we'll get into a little bit more of that. But it's a partnership between CAIC, the Colorado Avalanche Information Center, the Utah Avalanche Information Center, and the Canadian Avalanche Association. They put it together, and so far it's worked really well. It's an outreach to avalanche education, getting the knowledge, the gear, and just the appropriate training out. And that's kind of the basis of this, but dialed down more onto the local problems here. So again, this isn't a any sort of certification. This is just learning about the problems. If you feel like you want to learn more, you can contact me directly, or you can go just Google avalanche courses, and you can find any sort of provider around here. Matt Ants does a really good job with classes. Silverton Avalanche School over on the other side does a really good job too. But if I don't know you, or you don't know how to contact me, it's plastered all over the CAIC website. You can find me there, and we can talk about how to get you into an avalanche course. So my purview is the highways around here. CDOT partners with the Avalanche Information Center and contracts us to provide avalanche forecasts from November 1 through April 31st, daily forecasts to keep their main mission is to keep the highways open, safe for their employees and for travelers. So what we do is we work really closely with the plows, daily discussions with them all the time. And that's Wolf Creek Pass. For me, it's Wolf Creek Pass from Glen and Coombers from Manga. Wolf Creek pretty much is about 95% of my time. As you can imagine, the snow load there keeps me busy, and other forecasters busy as well. There's on Wolf Creek itself, there's about 50 avalanche paths that pose a threat to the highway. And some of them are really, really big avalanche paths. The 160s, I'll show you some pictures of those here in a few minutes. The 160s are no joke avalanche paths. And then you go all the way down to things like cut banks, and cut banks can pose just as much of a problem on the highways and for skiers, recreationalists, is really anything. Well, they don't get the same sort of respect as avalanche paths called the Widowmaker and the Battleship, but there's just as many fatalities out of small cut banks as there is any of those really, really large paths. Although the bigger paths are on the west side of the path, for the most part, that's where most of the hazard is, and that's where most of the closures come from. There's the only two fatalities though that have happened on the highway, on Highway 160 over the pass, is on the east side, just under the snow shed under Alberta Cousin. That was a trucker that was swept over, and then farther down by Tucker Ponds is a little path, and it's really pretty small. It's up by the upper train station. And it's pretty small, but a very plow driver. So again, even though the big paths like the 160s, they're the money makers. Those are the ones that give you the really good avalanche photos. Um, the small ones are the ones that are just as fatal and dangerous. So how we deal with that is um, in several different aspects. One of them is my main goal is to keep the avalanches small. Um, the if you look at where you're at here, you're basically up on top of Wolf Creek Pass, and you're looking across, and these paths right through here. If you can see my cursor, these are called the 160s, and it's not for Highway 160. It's for where they come out on the pass. It's the mile marker 160s, so 163-ish or so. They're also broke down into smaller names: Kathy, Andrew, Daniel, and Stephen. But these are the ones that produce really big avalanches. That on the west side of the pass, if you look up, you can see the snow mounds. The snow mounds are one way that we have to keep the it's called passive mitigation. So if we do have natural avalanches out of either of these, we have passive mitigation through the mounds, and that's to break up the debris. My main intent with these is to keep the avalanches fairly small. And if you look at these, even though you start looking at the crowns on some of these avalanches, and this wasn't this season, this was last year, or I think it was last season. These are fairly big avalanches. This is probably 2.5 to 3 meter deep, so close to 10 feet deep, and several hundred meters long. They're still relatively, I won't say small, but they're not climax type avalanches. And these are just several different frequent producers where these come out, and these were all produced with the 105 millimeter howitzer that we have to help with mitigation there. But these didn't hit the road. So again, the mission or the intent is to keep the frequency high. So frequency of avalanche is high and relatively controlled while we have the pass closed. And then while we can manage the debris flows. What we don't want are big, massive climax avalanches coming down and closing the road while we don't have it closed, and so it's a little less controlled. And so again, what we try to do is keep these fairly small, so that you don't end up with an avalanche that looks like this. And this is a climax avalanche, probably a 1 in 300 year event. And if you can see this. This wasn't in this valley. This was up in the Roaring Fork Valley. This is Snowmass skier in the foreground, and this shot was taken about 5-7 miles away. The crown of this, from all the way over here off the screen up to through here, is about 5.7 miles long, and that's a climax avalanche. And those are the types of avalanches that we don't want to see on the highway. This is in the backcountry, in the wilderness, after a really, really massive storm. This is about 30 feet deep. This crown up in here is about 30 feet deep, and it all ran naturally. Again, this is the kind of avalanche that we are trying to keep from happening on the highways. What happens if these types of climax avalanches hit the highway with this kind of debris is, if you remember in 2019 when Red Mountain Pass was closed for 45 days, that's what those kinds of avalanches did. It's just almost impossible to punch through it with any machinery. So those avalanches, like this one in particular, took out about 300 acres of mature 300-year-old timber and deposited into the Snowmass Creek. And again, that's just not something that we want to happen on the highways. So we shoot frequently. We use our tools frequently. Oh, there's my dog. Just to keep it light. There's my dog in the debris pile there. As we're looking at we're taking cookies samples of the timber that came down with that tree or that slide to see how old it was. So to keep the passes and the roads open, what we try to do is shoot frequently. So using a storm like last year's holiday storm where we got 12 feet in 12 days, it's although it might seem like we're overshooting, and what we don't want is to have those types of climax avalanches close the road to where we can't open it up again. So for that particular storm, and I'll relate it again to the storm that we just had over our New Year's storm and then this last storm. For two Christmases ago, we shot during a 12-day period. We shot the Avalanches 4 times, the Avalanche or 3 different missions, and then a whole bunch of hand rounds as well. And the guy, he's carrying a 105 millimeter howitzer. That's an artillery shell that we shoot from the pass. That gun's permanently mounted there, and we can shoot in the dark. According to the military, we shoot with limited visibility, but that's one thing that we have on Wolf Creek that no one else in the state has, is we can shoot basically in the dark. We can't see our target. We've got that gun permanently mounted there though, so the our shots are always calibrated in. So our typical missions are with that howitzers. We will shut the pass down at 6 o'clock. This should be pretty familiar for most folks in the valley because we just got done with a pretty significant cycle last week where we shot just about every day last week and closed the pass down. But we try to close the pass at 6 a.m. every morning that we're going to shoot. And that's just to help with Davey, keeping the skier traffic flowing, and just that system. Not saying we won't shut down if the hazard insists, but that's typically what we'll do is we close at 6, sweep, and then shoot. Whether or not we're doing the Obelix, the howitzers, or even Avalanches or the hand rounds. So the Obelix is, if you guys remember the old show Mork and Mindy, that's that egg right there is exactly what it looks like when Mork steps out of it. But that's an Obelix, and that's it produces a concussion, and inside there's a tank of hydrogen and oxygen, and there's a regulator and a mixing valve in there, and we control that remotely. We park underneath the lowest runaway ramp above the overlook, and we can connect to both of those, and we shoot that frequently. My thresholds for those are about 12 to 18 inches to keep the traffic flowing on the west side of the pass. And you can see, I didn't able to get it in there, but there's a picture of the blower that it's about twice the size of the blower right now, or it was last week, the debris in there, just because we're shooting it just about every foot or so, just to keep the volume out of those avalanche paths. So this is the snow shed, and on the east side of the pass, just underneath the top of the pass, just underneath the ski area. This is Alberta's cousin. It hit Alberta's cousin was with hand rounds. So Davey and Eric Dienermeyer, the owner of the Wolf Creek ski area, and the ski patrol director, took a few hand rounds up there for us last season and produced this slide that hit the snow shed. My predecessor to this job was in it. Mark Mueller was in the job for about 20 years, and he'd only seen it hit the snow shed 3 times in his 20 years. So last season, that cycle was pretty significant to hit the snow shed. I think you can see my cursor, but one of the real problematic areas on the pass right now is what we call Alberta's shoulder. And you can see here, it's just a sparse section of timber. And the reason it's sparse because it hasn't run natural, it hasn't avalanched naturally in, I don't know, probably 25, 30 years to a point where it's cleaning these out. But the problem with it is it's not affected by, or the snow shed isn't effective here. It fills up just on the uphill side of that snow shed. So we try to manage the traffic appropriately. We try not to have ski area traffic when they're backed up going into the parking lots back here. We try not to let them back up if the hazard's high directly uphill of the snow shed, just because if you're stopped, the chances of getting hit by an avalanche are significantly higher than if you're in motion. So we try not to let traffic stop too much. There's a picture of that slide. You can see basically it went side to side, about 3 meters deep. So pretty significant avalanche there. I'm gonna pause real quick and take a look at the chat. Or is it Hannah or Hannah? Are there any questions so far that want to pause for?
No questions yet in the chat, but
hey,
if anyone
Matt.
has any, feel free to shout them out or pop them in the chat. Go for it, Stephen.
Hey, Matt. Steve Delaney.
Hey, Steve.
How's it going?
How's it going?
Good. Hey, question. I might have missed it. I was driving home from work. How big was that slide by the snow shed relative to the historical slide path?
Probably, if you're talking R size, it would be an R5.
Okay.
R5 was that.
Gotcha.
An R5 D3, so a destructive size 3. And for a destructive size 3 would be strong enough that it would destroy cars, turn over trains, railroad cars, and so it's pretty significant avalanche for sure.
And did it made it down to the highway?
Yeah. Yep, made it down to the highway, across the snow shed with a bigger, made it all the way down to the creek bottom.
Wow. Gotcha.
So yeah. So I guess as we talk about the highways here, and since I think everybody's local or in the area, those areas when it's really starting to snow and when it's really blowing, just if you see a semi that's spun out, or if you see something that's blocking the road, take a look above you, make sure that you're not underneath some of those. We can't be there all the time, but the main mission is to keep traffic flowing so that your chances of getting hit are reduced significantly. If you saw earlier in that slide, there was something called the Avalanche Hazard Index, and we're pretty high up there on the AHI, Avalanche Hazard Index. But once we stop traffic, or once a semi doesn't chain up, or somebody spins out, the probability of getting hit just skyrockets. So if you're in one of those areas that says avalanche area and you're stopped, then do what you can to get yourself out of there. Stay in your vehicle though. Any questions on that? Which is more of a practical side of this. And then on the other side of that, the plow drivers on Wolf Creek, Coomberse, and Slum are pretty fantastic. So RE up on Slum, basically doing that whole stretch from Spring Creek to Powderhorn by himself, and he's doing a fantastic job. So if they've got the chain laws out, the traction laws out, chain up or keep your snow tires on. You know, it's not just, they're not just doing it for fun. So the guys on Wolf Creek are fantastic at keeping that road open. So huge shout out to those dudes. On the other side of it, pretty much we want to end up being able to do this, right? We want to be able to enjoy, whether it's skiing, snowshoeing, Nordic skiing, just taking a drive over the pass just to look at the snow. We want to be able to do it, and we want to be able to do it safely. So that's the other side of the CAIC. There's two sides of it, and we said my side is the highways, and although we do get into the backcountry a little bit as far as forecasting the backcountry, a lot of my job is stuck on the highways and forecasting for the highways, but the way I do that is skiing in the backcountry. So the other aspect of that is how do we ski and recreate safely in the backcountry? I'm gonna start off with this one. This is the number of fatalities across the country, state by state, and the related avalanches. And this is everything: recreational, workers, professionals. That you can see that Colorado's by far near and above, almost double. Alaska's 145, we're 270, so pretty much double of our nearest neighbors. The reason for that is we have an incredibly weak snowpack. It's cold, it's high, it's dry, and thin. And then we take a really cold, dry, high, thin, weak snowpack, and then we dump a lot of people up on top of it, whether it be on top of the passes where they're going backcountry skiing, or whether or not if they're with the ski areas, we're dumping a lot of people, 5,000 people a day at the top of ski areas, where we're expecting to stay within the ski area boundaries and behave by the rules. And unfortunately, depending on unfortunately, the most ski areas have an open boundary policy, and you can leave the ski area at any given place. You just can't come back into a closed area. And before you go ducking outside ski areas into the backcountry, make sure you know their policies on how to get back in. And then I'm going to stop sharing here for a second and then switch. The other thing you want to do before you go ducking outside ski areas, the ski area boundaries, is to check the backcountry forecast. And let's see if this is going to work better now. Still not seeing it. Yeah, close enough. Are you guys seeing the backcountry forecast showing up?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Trying a little slow. So this season we totally revamped our forecasting, our forecast cycles, how we forecast for the state. Instead of breaking the state into 10 zones, North San Juan, or excuse me, South San Juans, um, Aspen, Aspen, um, Grand Mesa. We broke it down into everything that you see here is a conglomerate of about 110 different polygons inside this. So even though we'll go to this one since it stands out, even though this polygon is generally in the what we would consider part of the northern San Juans, or what we used to consider part of the northern San Juans and southern San Juans. Inside here, there is probably 15 different polygons that, at a discussion every afternoon, we go through and decide, is this polygon so similar to down here that we lump them all together as a snowpack, so similar that we can lump everything together. So what that does is it gives us a little bit of flexibility and a higher resolution forecast. And so instead of breaking the southern San Juans from Wolf Creek all the way over to the La Platas, now we can say we have 3.5, 4 meters of snowpack on Wolf Creek Pass, same down by Cumbres, but we don't have that here. We don't have 3.5, 4 meters of settled snowpack over by the La Platas or over by Vallecito. So we can break this down, and even farther, we can break it farther down into, say, Oprah. So it gives the user, you guys, a way better product than just saying from the southern San Juans, from the La Platas on the east or the west side of Durango all the way to Del Norte Peak is the exact same snowpack and the exact same avalanche.
Matt,
So
Matt,
yeah.
this is your map that I'm seeing is kind of just a fragment of like the southern San Juans, and I think you're kind of been showing like maybe statewide map, and I'm not sure if other people are seeing the same issue. We're seeing some kind of CAIC map, but maybe not the whole state of Colorado.
Okay. How are you seeing it? What are you seeing now?
Well, seeing like the moderate and considerable kind of color icons, and really just like the Del Norte, Monte Vista, southern San Juan's, Pagosa Springs, and that's about it.
Okay. So are you seeing the orange stuff as well over onto the?
Yeah, we're seeing where I'm seeing from Chimney Rock on the map north, an orange color, and then Pagosa north and northeast is yellow.
Yeah.
But I'm not seeing like La Platas or Gunnison or other parts, if that's what you kind of describing.
Yeah, everybody's going to have a little bit different format of what they're going to be able to see on it, from as it's being chopped down. I guess the point of it is not necessarily just showing what the current danger is. It's really more that we've revamped the system, and you're going to have to, when you get into going into Google or not to Google Earth, but into the website, and you Google the CAIC, that it's an interactive system now, and it's way higher resolution than it was, and you're not going to see just a straight southern San Juan's forecast anymore. If you know where you're going to go, and the reason we did this, we changed it to putting a forecast out the evening before, was to support the basic change in avalanche education that's pushing the trip planning. So by 7 o'clock in the morning, we figured most people already know where they're going to go for the day, and that by us putting the forecast out for that day, it was more appropriate for us to start putting forecasts out the night before. And we we built some redundancy into how we forecast. So if we get surprised by a late overnight storm, that we have a forecaster. We still have forecasters on at 4 o'clock in the morning to change the avalanche hazard in real time. But for the most part, these forecasts for tomorrow are going to be put out by 5 o'clock in the evening the night before. So our whole cycle has changed. When you click on one of these, and I'm not sure what you can see, but when you click on a polygon, you're going to see this. And Doug, can you see where it comes with the above tree line, near tree line, below tree line?
Yeah, I can. Yep.
Okay. So this is where you're going to get the specifics on it. And you're going to go into the tier 1 sort of information, yellow, green, red, orange. Those are, if you don't want to know anything else, this is as deep as you want to get, then no problem. It's going to tell you above tree line, your hazard above tree line, near tree line, and below tree line. And it's also going to give you a trend for the next day. If you're planning a hot trip or planning an extended version of playing in the backcountry or trip, that's what that is. And again, we have forecasters on pretty much 24/7, so that we're keeping those current. Then as you scroll down farther, you can read the summary of what we're expecting. So here's, I think Chris wrote today, basically talking about triggering something deep is becoming, it's becoming pretty difficult to do that. Not saying you can't do it, but a skier trigger and something full depth is probably pretty unlikely nowadays, until we get another significant load. But we haven't gone to low avalanche danger yet. Then if you want to continue to dive deeper into this, you can get into the avalanche problems. We're in Colorado. You can pretty much count on having a persistent lip slab problem at least into February, and a lot of times even into March. Since our snowpack is starting to get so deep, you might see this go away a little bit sooner. Maybe in the first week or two of February, you might see that persistent slab problem go away. And we start just to look at storm snow instabilities. And then when we start talking about each avalanche problem, here's where you start to geek out a little bit. And when you're looking at the rows, it's highlighted in the areas that it's most likely to trigger. It's not, on the southwest aspect and the south aspect for today, at all elevations on the southeast below tree line. We're not saying you're not going to find it here, but what we are just saying is that it's more likely to find it on the more north half aspects. Possible. This is the likelihood that you're going to find that, and it's going to be skier triggerable is possible. When we start getting into likely, very likely, our avalanche hazard bumps up, and we start getting into orange or red once you get into very likely. And then size, large, very large. And this is what Steve Delaney was alluding to earlier. We will talk about relative size a little bit, but it's more destructive size, and that's another factor that goes into our daily avalanche rating. Is are we seeing destructive size 2 avalanches, and those are avalanches that are large enough to injure, bury, or kill a person. And if we're seeing those, if we're thinking that D2 avalanches are possible, then we're at least at moderate avalanche danger, and that goes to the I guess the trend in culture, that skiing on moderate avalanche days, moderate avalanche hazard days, is pretty much fair game. Like you can ski anything steep, and but the literal meaning, the literal definition of moderate avalanche danger is that skier triggering avalanches is possible. So, when we get into considerable or high hazard days, you're talking about skier triggering avalanches is likely or very likely, but even in moderate, it's still possible. You need to manage your terrain, manage your terrain choices and your trip appropriately. When we throw the green flag out at low, then we're pretty comfortable that skier triggering is becoming unlikely, at least in the D2 size. Again, D2 being big enough to injure, bury, or kill a person. Any questions on the new site? Has everybody been using it? Has anybody been using it? Does anybody have any input on it? It's been in the years in the making, and
yeah, this
got
is
really.
I have
Yeah.
like the recent changes, having that information soon instead of like 7 or 8 in the morning. I do appreciate the information earlier, and then
Yeah.
of course I do the idea of you guys being able to adjust accordingly to.
Yeah. Excuse me. I'm gonna turn some lights on. It got dark when I was on sharing my screen there. I didn't realize it was so dark in the cabin here. Yeah, I think that was the intent of it, was that it's more available. But you can imagine the logistical side of trying to keep manpower available to produce a forecast for the storms that show up overnight and we missed the forecast on them. But we still have the redundant forecasters on all the time up in Boulder. That for the most part we haven't had to change forecasts with that 4 a.m. shift. So it's but other than my highway forecasting on occasion.
This is Doug again. I did notice, it seemed like I noticed, it used to be this, seemed like one large polygon all the way from Durango to Coombers Pass on the west side. And anyways, it seems like you guys have broken it up. I'm sure that's more work, but maybe it's, more realistic on the variabilities that the snowpacks have.
Yeah, it's huge. Very, very seldom do we have the season like we are right now, where the La Platas are producing as much snow as Wolf Creek Pass is. It just doesn't happen, except for this season. So breaking the polys down into higher resolution has been really good. This is where I'm gonna ask for more feedback, though, from users. Is this system only really works, this higher resolution only works if we get feedback from people that are out in out in the backcountry, whether it be skiing, snowshoeing, snowmobiling, whatever. We have a few reliable folks that tell me what's going on over by Summitville. But overall, it's pretty hard to say with confidence that the snowpack is that much different from in Summitville that it is from Cumbres, that it is from Wolf Creek Pass. So the more feedback, whether it just be shooting me a text or putting it yesterday, any sort of input like that from the users is great, and that's really the only way that the higher resolution forecasts are truly effective. Otherwise, we're data forecasting. We're forecasting with data only based on snowtail sites and remote weather stations. So the more on the ground stuff is great. Any other questions? It's 5:50 now. You guys were supposed to talk. You're supposed to ask more questions, so I didn't just ramble on forever.
This is Doug again. So like you're saying, more user comments or feedback is like you said, send a text or something like that. But I mean, like I don't necessarily have your number. Is it available like at those local Polygon forecast regions, or do you just does the user submit a comment within? I'm just trying to figure out how to provide feedback.
Yeah. Come on, let's see. So I'm gonna share a screen again real quick, and I'll talk about putting knobs in. Okay. Hopefully it'll work out. Doug, can you see the forecast page again?
Yeah, I can see the forecast observation accidents education part. Yeah.
Yeah. So where I'm at right now is submit field report, and it's for me. It looks a little bit different because of staff, but when you go into observations, it'll say submit avalanche, submit field report, and you can do submit a short ob in here, and you can keep your name, if you don't want everybody to see what you're doing, where you're skiing, right into here, and every click that you do is going to change the products that come in. So if you say I saw avalanches here, it's going to click what kind of avalanches, and you're going to have to figure out what all the different details. The long and short of it is if you trigger an avalanche, or just come in here and put a quick blob in, your email will come up, and if you want to put your phone number in, I think you have to put your phone number in. We'll contact you if we have any questions. If you want to stay on after this, or Honey, you can feel free to put my cell phone number into the chat. I'm afraid if I do it right now, I'm going to lose the sharing capabilities and everything. I'm not really tech savvy. So to do it officially, Doug, go into the web page. Instead of going to forecast, go into observations, submit a field report, and do as much detail as you want, as little detail as you want, but let us know what you're seeing.
Okay. Great.
So that's the official way. Delaney sends me texts every now and then on what he's seeing, and those are just as helpful as the full-on observations. So yeah, any other questions? questions.
We've got one in the chat from Owen Woods. Has the West Coast atmospheric river had any impact on the San Juans?
Yes. River, and the first week of January as well, what brought our snowpack up from 69% in at the end of November to 130%. So what we're looking at to finish out January, at least on that side of the hill. So yeah, that the AR has been really helpful for us. I'm hoping that we get a little bit of a break on this cycle of high pressure right now, and then we starts picking back up again. But let the plow drivers catch up and get everybody dug out this week, and hopefully it turns back down to the south. Right now it's coming down from the northwest, which is a little bit more what we'd expect on the triple dip and so year that we have going on. There it is. Thanks, Hannah. But yeah, that AR has been really productive at bumping our snowpack and our water up. For those of you that are keeping track at home, we this last storm from January 11th through the 16th, we picked up 5 inches of water, SWE snow water equivalency, and 50 inches of snow on top of the pass. And then the storm previous to that, the biggest storm, we had several little storms in between that and the holiday storm. The holiday storm put about the same down, about 4 inches of SWE and another 4 or 5 feet of snow, which did wonders for our snowpack. Doug, your warmer year-round temperatures. So Doug's question was how has the warmer year-round temperatures affected avalanche forecasts? Honestly, we don't. A decent data cycle is about 30 years, so we don't have enough data to say that the warmer temperatures have worsened or bettered. I don't know if better is a word. Made our avalanche cycles any better. For me down here, this is only my 3rd season forecasting in the southern San Juan, so I don't have enough data input to really say the forecasts or our cycles have been getting more significant. It does seem like from chatting with Mark Mueller, my predecessor, it does seem like our snowpack, our storms have become more potent and less like we don't get a significant storm. We don't get just a period of snow through the winter. It just doesn't snow all winter. We get a significant storm like we just had, 4 or 5 inches of SWE, and it stops. Or like last year, we got 12 inches of SWE in a 12 day period, and then it basically stopped snowing for the rest of the winter, minus a few smaller storms. So it seems like it's not as spread out, but again, that's a anecdotal data point, not anything that can be proven without a lot more years in it. Did that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Thanks, Matt.
yeah. So that's pretty much all I've got. And I think that's all the time we have too. So if there's no more questions, I'll turn it back over to Hannah or Hannah and
Yeah, thank you.
for what.
Thanks, Matt. That was awesome. If anyone does have any last questions, feel free to pop them in the chat, or you can always send Matt an email or text with them, or you can reach out to me directly and I'll pass them along. And thanks again for all of you for joining and sharing. Next month, we will be right back here on Zoom Wednesday, February 22nd with Kevin Duda to talk more about forestry and forest management. So how we sort of choose what areas to manage of the forest. And we hope to see you there. We'll be sending out more information about that. And we'll also be sending out our schedule for the rest of the year. We've got a lot of great speakers lined up coming up this year for our Forest Specialist series. So we hope you will join us next month and throughout the year. And this month's door prize winner was Cindy. So I'll be in touch with you about picking up your prize. You can get it at the Divide District office here in Del Norte. So thanks for all of you who put your name in, and feel free again if you would like to be kept in the loop. You can send me your email and I'll add you to our mailing list for these programs and more like it. And thanks again to Matt. We appreciate you coming on and sharing all this information. Definitely, if you're headed out in the backcountry, check out the CAIC's website and look into getting some avalanche education, either through Know Before You Go or lots of local folks putting that on. So thanks again, and I hope you all enjoy your evening.